Hi guys, I'm going to start today with the Mystical Shaman Oracle. I had two pop out today. Number 1 with the Ancient Ones and number 58 with the Tree of Life. I think that's kind of interesting because if you look at my second column there, we have the Five of Swords and the Eight of Cups. So maybe 58 is a number that means something to somebody. I don't know. But anyway, so the Ancient Ones, that card talks about, the shamans of old, our ancestors, huge ancestor energy with this one. I don't know if those are owl feathers, but it feels like there's owlness to it. That ancient wisdom, that ability to see deeper. And a lot of times that comes from living it, experiencing it, being the observer for longer than we have been the observer, right? So a lot of times that's where we get our wisdom from, passing things down. That's how, wisdom works, right? It's learning from others' mistakes, but it's also learning from other people's collective knowledge too. So right away, I kind of get this feeling like somebody's ancestors are trying to reach out to them. I feel like there is something that they're desperately trying to let you know. Whether you resonate with your ancestors as being another part of yourself, a deeper connection to the collective consciousness, or however you relate to that. And I have so many different theories, and I go deep into different theories with other theories. There's one that I feel like a lot of times reincarnation is just explaining our bloodline, our lineage, how we go on in our life through others. Not so much in the physical aspect, but very much like the physical aspect mixed with the mystical aspect of it. I think that's all intertwined. So when I say stuff like that, it's not that I don't believe that there's magic in it. I believe that it's way more intertwined and more complicated than we'll ever know. But I do think that there is a more structured way of explaining things too, and I think that that's part of it. And that brings me to the Tree of Life. So in this deck, the Tree of Life talks about how in shamanism, the roots of the trees dig deep down into the lower world, and the lower world is kind of supposed to be like where your innate natural primal self is. This is humanity and our spirituality at the core. This is like where you find the oversouls, the aspects of our nature, the connection in that I'm human and you're human. Whereas you don't it's not that dog, it's spirit of dog. You know what I mean? So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so your roots are in the bottom of the soil, in deep within the earth, right? You're rooted in the ground, and then the tree's limbs stretch out to the sky, and the sky represents that, the evolution of things, the future, the ethereal, the place where our destiny is, the more subconscious part of our spirituality. Whereas, in the lower worlds, that's our innate human nature. This is, our deepest roots in who we are. And then we progress, and because of all that, then that's where, in the roots of the tree, the tips of the trees is in the heavens, so to speak, you know what I mean? And then the trunk of the tree, the meat of the tree, that is in the middle world. And then that's where we live. We live in the middle world. It's not that there's not spirituality in the middle world. It's just the middle world is sometimes confusing because there's all kinds of things going on. This is where we literally get to flesh it out, right? We learn the lessons, and it's kind of like the school part of it. Anyway, so my whole point with this message from our ancestors that I feel like we're getting, I feel like we're being reminded that there has to be balance. Everything's balanced. And I hate to say that, but it's true. Balance, 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 right? I want to sing it like the Deftones song. That would be so much cooler. But anyway, so I feel like you're getting this message. There's something that perhaps you are needing to bring from above to below, right? I feel like there is something that, maybe you're working on, and you'll see in the rest of this reading why I'm thinking this, but there's a lot going on in your mind, or maybe you're overthinking it. I think somebody is definitely in this aspect of either trying to get over overthinking, or they're allowing that to kind of block them in a way. And I feel like our ancestors are urgently trying to get a hold of us and say, okay, hey, this is your thing. This is your thing that you're, either that you want to do, or that's the thing that you're meant to do. In my opinion, I think those are the same thing. What you feel like you're destined to do is the same thing that will fulfill you. So whether it is some type of quest or some type of like drive to do something, then that's what you're supposed to do, right? So I feel like that's what that's saying. And then if you look in the ancient ones, she's got owl feathers. And then, we have mugwort. She's got an owl with her there too. Mugwort is a very lunar aspect. It's a herb that is very lunar. It's associated with feminine wisdom and dream work. The liminal space is clairvoyance, getting those intuitive messages, right? It's everything we think of when we think of like those type of lunar energies, the lunar magic. What's appealing about that, right? All the things that like being able to kind of pull the truths out of things, with the owl there. And that one is also, it's the moon in Neptune. So it's a lot of that watery, spiritual depthness. So I feel like this is where you're being reached, is that the right word? I don't know, but this is where you're being kind of contacted. And it doesn't mean that like it's only in your dreams. It's could only in your dreams, sorry. But it could be like where you're you're going about your day, and there's things that kind of like, if you're a daydreamer, I'm a freaking daydreamer, dude. It's kind of a thing. But you're getting these hits, or there's like something that you're intuitive about. I feel like whoever this is for, we're really being called to kind of pay attention to that. And we always say that, but I feel like there's a specific message that you are being either guided to, or something is definitely kind of tell you how to do that. And I feel like we're being told to kind of like bring those aspects that mean deep inner knowledge that we have, that I feel like a lot of us are drawn to. And we're being asked to kind of blend that in our day-to-day lives. It's kind of like, I always say like ritual, and I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but ritual is like, it's kind of like why they say a spiritual practice is a practice, right? It's because it requires practice. You're reaffirming the things and the beliefs and those actions in your brain. So when you do a ritual, and here I am, I'm always have to be practical about things, but I'm not a practical person. I don't know. But it's about, when there's something that you really want, like when you do affirmations, it's the same thing. It's you are reaffirming that to yourself, and you're rewiring yourself, whether you're doing that energetically or whether you're doing that mentally. I feel like that's a lot of it what ritualism is, and we have that everywhere, in so many different forms. It's also about honoring certain things. So for some reason that's coming up, so maybe that's something for somebody. And I'm a firm believer in building your own system, like your own rituals, your own beliefs, your own way of honoring whatever that is. Because a lot of us don't have like a big cultural thing. I mean, I don't. My family is so varied. I could not pinpoint one culture that my family is from. I feel like in America, there's a lot of us that have that. And, either you deal with it and you figure it out, or I think that's what's wrong with a lot of people nowadays. And I'm not going to get deep into that, but I think you know what I mean. So rather than having that, they cling to something else. But anyway, so I feel like that is important to somebody, and I feel like solidifying that connection not only solidifies your connection to your ancestors and your belief system, but it also kind of gives you that confidence, because you know what you're talking about, because it's your thing. You're developing your thing. I mean, how much more personal and spiritual can something be when you develop it yourself, right? So I don't know why that came out either. So maybe that's something that means something for somebody. But we're going to go to the tarot. And I love how the King of Cups is Prince in here, because, I just love Prince. I'm old, so I was old enough to know who Prince was back in the day. My babysitter used to listen to Prince all the time. Anyway, so the King of Cups and the Ace of Swords in the first position. And in my first position in here, this first column, for me, that column represents who this message is for, or the situation. Either way, if you resonate with this, this is kind of how you'll know that's for you. Doesn't have to be, but sometimes, like when I listen to different readings, I don't resonate with all of it, but I get pieces and parts. And I feel like that's the thing too. A lot of times it's literally being the observer. Not to repeat myself, but I feel like it's saying, you know, when you go to listen to something, you might not get the entire thing. The entire thing might not be directly for you, but what the wisdom somebody is sharing, whether it is brought to you from like some deeper insight, or it's how somebody interprets the cards. This, when it pings something in you, that's the whole point of synchronicity. It's pinging your subconscious. It's pinging that inner you. So these are things that are hidden deep down inside of us, and they're not things that we don't know. These are things that we need reminded, right? We're rediscovering them. Big, you know, that's a big thing of like why my channel title is named that, is I feel like I'm rediscovering myself. So there's this like, you know, understanding that like, oh, okay, that's what that meant to me. You know what I mean? And it helps when you have somebody who's been through it, who really knows it. I mean, I do believe in channeling as well. I feel like there's so much that we get from the world that we just don't understand. Anyway, I don't know why I went on a tirade about that, but there you go. So the King of Cups and the Ace of Swords. For me, this feels like somebody who, you know, obviously the King of Cups, he is somebody who is balanced. He's able to go down to the depths and come out, you know, unscathed. He actually likes it down there, right? You know what I mean? He likes to wallow in the depths of his emotions. They don't always, I say they, it's like I'm describing a Scorpio. Can you tell I'm married to one? But it's like they don't always like to like let it out. But this is somebody who, over time, I feel like when you're the king, you've kind of mastered that skill to where you're okay with it. You know, you can kind of be that. You don't have to like let it shift you. You're able to kind of center yourself. And not to say that we don't all have faults. And the King of Cups, sometimes he has faults. Like being somebody that's deep like that, you might not be sympathetic to somebody else. Where the Queen of Cups, a lot of times, she is very sympathetic. And at the same time, she can also be overly vulnerable because she's overly sympathetic and very empathetic. So the King of Cups, sometimes he can come off cold in that way. Not that he doesn't understand, but because your depth might not be as deep, or he might not perceive your depth as deep as his. They're not going to really focus on how it's affecting you. It's more of like an even keel, right? As like, oh, okay, well, you know, I get this, but I'm unwavering about it, is what I'm saying. But the depth represents an understanding. A depth represents the deep knowledge of that emotional and spiritual aspect that the waters represent. This is somebody who's not emotionally unintelligent. They just are uninfected. And so with the Ace of Swords, this is somebody that maybe this is some type of like opportunity, but for some reason, I don't know, I'm getting like communication with this. So I feel like this is somebody who is either you're communicating something, or there's some type of communication coming for you that is about something. So again, about something. So with these ancestors that are trying to reach out to you, I feel like you're able to kind of tune into it. If you allow yourself, you'll understand it, right? You have that depth and that ability to understand it. So I feel like that's what this is saying. Whoever this is, you're being asked to listen because you will understand it. Okay, that's what I'm getting. And then my second column is kind of like what we need to focus on. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a good thing, but it's kind of like, you know, the thing, right? The situation. And then we have the Five of Swords. And then we also have the Eight of Cups. The Five of Swords, a lot of times that can be kind of like, it kind of can be like a one-sided win in a way, but it could also be about, you know, opportunities, somebody taking an opportunity, and sometimes it can be shifty. But also I feel like it can be, inner conflict, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you want something, but sometimes you feel like, oh, I can't not do that because then it'll upset this person or whatever. So maybe that's what this is about, since we have the Eight of Cups underneath there. The Eight of Cups is walking away from something that doesn't serve you. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, I'm going to quit my job, or I'm going to leave my spouse, or, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. I think people put too much emphasis on the literalness, and that's not at all what any of this stuff is about. It's about finding those depths and those understandings within yourself. But anyway, so, and a lot of times the Eight of Cups to me always reminds me of, you want more. It's not so much about like, you know, you don't appreciate those other cups. It's realizing that, okay, I've done that, and, you know, these are full, but I've had these cups for so long. I need something more. I need more stimulation, whether that's emotional, mental, it's something that spiritual. For some reason, that's coming up for me. So we have swords and we have cups. It's almost like there is an emotional awareness, like a combination of heart and mind, which with the Three of Swords over there, that's what that always kind of means to me. It's like balancing head over heart, especially since we have the Two of Cups. I mean, the King of Cups twice, and then we have the King of Swords. So somebody's definitely mastering balance over head over heart. But also, I feel like with this being something we need to focus on, I think we're being encouraged, especially from our ancestors, to want more, to seek more in that way. And maybe it does have something to do with knowledge. I don't know. But that inner conflict can be about worrying that the thing that you're looking for, the thing that you're striving for, the thing that you want, the more, right? Maybe you're overthinking it, or maybe you're worried that it is going to cause conflict in your life, and it might. But then again, I feel like, you know, all that takes when we have those moments where we kind of question things, or if we worry about, you know, how it's going to affect somebody else, you really need to just kind of sit with yourself and, you know, think it out. You know what I mean? Have a little powwow with yourself and, you know, take a moment to really assess your feelings, because that's important. And I feel like with all this saying, I feel like there is somebody who obviously is aware of that ability. And I think that your ancestors are kind of telling you that you're ready for whatever it is, because you have that emotional awareness. You have that ability to balance head and heart. Yeah, let's go to the next set. Okay, so we have the Seven of Swords, and it's a little squished there. I'm sorry. I tried to make this so you could see it better, but I don't know. I might have ruined it. And we have the King of Cups again. So big on the King of Cups. Somebody is very emotionally mature. Or maybe there's, because this is our assets. This is things that we have as our assets. And with the Seven of Swords being as an asset, to me, that is the ability to navigate things mentally, right? This is somebody who has quick wit. You're able to kind of see ways out of a situation. And maybe you're able to do that because you are able to kind of intuit. Is that the right word? That's like a tax preparation thing, isn't it? But because you have an emotional awareness, you're able to kind of see things how they are, like the King of Cups, not be affected by it, but at the same time have that emotional awareness where, you can maybe not sympathize so much, but you are able to... I don't know. I feel like you are somebody that can sympathize. That's why the King of Cups is here twice. I don't think he's put in a negative spot. But I feel like you are somebody who is emotionally aware and you're able to kind of feel the situation. You know, that whole empath thing where people say you can walk into a room and you can feel it. I feel like I can do that. I don't like to label myself as anything. You know how I am. I don't know why. I'm just weird. But at the same time, I think if you are... able to really look at yourself and kind of figure out yourself, it kind of helps you, kind of gives you a roadmap for how the rest of the world works, honestly. But I feel like with this being our asset, I think that we are able to kind of strategize and kind of maneuver in whatever this is using our emotions, right? We're able to navigate with our emotions. We are able to kind of... to feel things out a little bit, like, oh, I have this big, horrible decision I don't want to make. So what do I do? Well, how does this make me feel? And sit with it, right? Take that time with yourself, be your best friend, chill out and feel it, right? And I also feel like since we have like that whole, Eight of Cups, you want more. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe this is some type of spiritual knowledge that you are pushing for. And I just got chills when I said that. But I think that's what it is. I think there is some sort of spiritual work or deep work, whether it is creatively or something else. And, it doesn't have to be a huge, deep thing where you have to like learn all the esoteric knowledge of everything. Because trust me, I like to learn that kind of stuff and I can rabbit hole for days. But at the same time, you need stimulated. And I feel like that's what this is. Somebody is looking to be spiritually stimulated. And I feel like your ancestors are trying to guide you in that way. So that's cool. And again, for some reason, this is coming up again. Work on figuring out what kind of ritual works for you. And it doesn't have to be anything anybody ever did. This is something that connects you to your spirit, how you interpret spirit, God, ancestors, whatever, and work with that. Integrate that into yourself constantly. Become a practice. Develop a practice and make it something that means something to you. Because a lot of times we repeat things or we do things that other people do. And, if you resonate with that or whatever, that's cool. But if you're somebody like me, there's so many things that I overthink or I put somewhere else. And a lot of times it's like, well, I don't know. I get that, but then there's this, you know what I mean? But whatever means something to you, I feel like you're being asked to kind of repeat that. And maybe this is something you can teach to other people too. Whoa. Yeah. So maybe there's some type of like spiritual teacher in your lineage or your history, or maybe that's something you resonate with. Even if it's something like, you can write something, or there's something about communication and communicating your beliefs and your spirituality and bringing it to others. A lot of the things you could say about the King of Cups is he's not somebody that's like very like, you have to do it this way. He's a very kind of like how the Queen of Wands is, where she's more about like, she teaches through example. The King of Cups is that way too. It's more about, he kind of has this way about him. So that way, when he does things, that people kind of observe it in that way. So I feel like that's important for somebody. But, you're not necessarily asked to kind of like, take out a several $1,000 loan and open up a school unless that is what you want to do. Because don't let me stop you. Because if you have the passion to do that because that's something cool. But I feel like it's more on the level of living your you and understanding what you do and expressing that, because then you stimulate that in somebody else. Anyway, I'm just all over the place. But my last column is always kind of like what your advice is, what your next step is. So with the Three of Swords, I always kind of I don't like to use that as a heartbreak or whatever. I mean, if I did those type of readings, maybe I would. I haven't been able to bring myself to do things like that. I think because there was a time in my life where I was that person and I would hang on every little thing, especially the negative stuff. And then of course, what do you do when you repeat that in your mind, right? You create that in your life. So I'm not about that. So I feel like, yes, there are things that kind of cause us heartbreak, and there are things that kind of, we have to learn from that. But that's what Three of Swords means for me. That's balancing your heart and your mind. I think it's Minopon Tarot that says, I mention him a lot, but because a lot of the things that he says make practical sense for me. I don't know. But he says that you're taking those swords out of your heart yourself. You're healing yourself. So I feel like that's what this discernment that you have, that King of Swords, that ability to, separate the truth from fiction. I feel like this is in your healing aspect. And I feel like your next step is maybe to kind of, master your healing. And maybe this is part of your healing ability, this thing that you need more of. I don't feel like this is somebody who needs to heal more. I don't think this is somebody who is currently suffering or whatever. I feel like you're in a spot where you've gotten to a certain place, and the next step is really kind of okay, well, where do I go now? I've done this, I've healed, I've gotten better, I understand this now what do I do with it? You live it in your way that stimulates you. So, and I ranted forever, but let's go to my favorite. Oh, I love this deck. I think it's the art's cool too, but I just love the explanations. And I thought it was cool because I'm a big nerd and I'm also a huge 311 fan, but the cards are 3 and 11. So whatever, I'm a dork. But anyway, and I have to read from the book because I don't know these ones very well, but okay. So the first card is number 3, Chaos. Boy, do I know that well. And this says, this card represents the shapeless primordial soup, the alchemist's receptacle. The alchemist's receptacle. The palette held by the artist before he starts painting, as shown in the art card. Technical ability and knowledge are ready and abundant, but the final execution, the right route are needed to avoid dispersion. Without quick and aware action, you face the risk of drifting away, feeding entropy. or remaining trapped in a stalled situation. I don't know why that was so hard for me to read. The advice of the dead, it's time for action. Time for some action. Sorry, that's a nerd song. If you don't know what that is, maybe I'll post it. Anyway, it's time for action. Analyze and choose all the opportunities available to you quickly without fear of cutting something out. Okay. Wow, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, I feel like you're ready. Whoever you are ready for this more that you have been needing. Okay. You just have to stop being overly decisive. You have to go with the flow, and you have to use your discernment, but also your emotional awareness to focus on the opportunities that are coming your way, because obviously there's some opportunities. And listen, dude, because your ancestors are talking to you, they're telling you something, and they're like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, I keep getting that message from myself too. It's like, hey, why don't you take a minute and listen? But anyway, so the second card, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but I love these names too. When I was a little girl, I'm sorry I have so many side stories, but that's what you get when you listen to me. In fourth grade, I remember, was the first time I really studied archaeology. It was like opened my whole world, and I was amazed. I mean, I watched a lot of PBS stuff, documentaries as a kid, because I lived in rural Ohio. I can't say that word. But I remember like learning about the Aztecs and the Maya, and I was just like, I was in love. So, that's another reason why I love this card. I don't have any heritage, I don't think, sad to say. I don't know what mine is, but anyway. So number 11, let me try and say this. Mictecacchual. I'll just say it that. Mictecacchual is the queen of the dead and the afterlife, responsible for memory as a whole and individual memories. She represents the principle of synthesis and aggregation of bodies and matter, complementary to that of her husband. Mictlantecuhtli. I ruined that. I'm so sorry. She is the alchemic coagulation, to join together, a continuation on a lower level of the concept of synthesis expressed by the feminine card. In fact, we see her near some recently remolded bodies, devouring stars during the day, because just as life cannot exist without death, day cannot exist without night. Oh yeah, see, that's all that stuff, that Three of Swords and all that stuff, all that conflict, that use it. You obviously have a lot of knowledge through that. The advice of the dead, the study and analysis you have done is sufficient, and the time has come to put them to work, enacting your own synthesis. Okay, so it just goes right together, if you ask me. Yeah, I definitely feel like this is somebody who I feel like your ancestors are saying either short, I'll say it nicely without swearing, or get off the pot. I feel like you have the knowledge, and quit second guessing yourself, and you have the intuitive and emotional ability, so you just need to do it. I feel like somebody needs to kind of take some quiet time to themselves, put themselves in time out, and listen to what the message that their inner self and their ancestors are telling them. I think that's beautiful. All right, and so then I also have in the Liminal Forrest Oracle, said that slow so I can say it, and we have the Will-O-Wisp. The Will-O-Wisp, a lot of times in legend is, they're spirits that can be tricksters. They lead people off into the dark, and then they disappear, so then you're lost, stranded in the woods. But if you think about it, what are these gases? What are these things that the ancient people that thought of these things, that use those to describe that, what are they? They're gases that are come out of lakes and bogs and things like that, and they come out of there and they create these beautiful colors and wisps, right? And they're made from gases from decaying plant matter. I know I'm such a nerd, but I don't care. But so it's something that is an inspiration. So because of that, there was an inspiration for people to create this story, right? And who knows what kind of inspiration from natural processes like that has inspired people. So people are kind of warned, and they get that knowing of, okay, don't always go after the shiny things, because, you can get lost along the way. And I feel like, whoa, I just got chills. So it's like, we get so excited. And if you know me, I get really excited. So you get so excited, so you go full force on something. I don't know why, but I'm feeling like you're being asked to follow that will-o-wisp. Because just like, that little light gets poofed out, and it's a process of something dying and decaying. Your light and your poof, right? Your thing, your inspiration, your little distraction, right? Is being, caused from the decaying of plant matter, the decaying of things that no longer serve in that purpose. They serve in another purpose. So that was a little abstract, but that's how I do. So, all right. So I've rambled long enough, and I hope that you are still here. And if you are, I appreciate you so much, and I will talk to you guys later.